that issue, you also agreed that the rationale for these criteria is to protect the users.
Yes, Council.
To protect their health and their safety and their lives.
In the lives.
That the requirements were not complied with, and then patients died. Would
Yes,
you
Council,
agree that it was as a consequence of not complying with the law and the guidelines that patients met their demise?
Council, I can't say I agree to that, but it was a result or a contributing factor to that.
A contributing factor?
Yes, that the patients died because there was no compliance to policy.
So, what do you think was the cause of death?
I don't know, Council.
Do you have no view at all as to why so many people died as a result of the Life Esidimeni termination project?
No, Council, and I haven't heard or wasn't also part of any reports that was given or anything.
And you haven't received any reports in your position. I take it you still hold your position at the department, is that correct?
Yes, yes, Council.
And there have been no further reports to you?
No, Council.
As to the cause of death?
No, Council.
And you haven't made any inquiries?
I did, but it was given to another section within the department to deal with that.
Another section within the department?
Yes, Council.
And you're not...
I'm not part of
that section?
Yes, all the people involved dealing with
that. Is that why you didn't make any inquiries?
I've made an inquiry, but there was no proper or active engagement between them and me because I couldn't have any dealings with them because it's a separate section that was dealing with it. Compilation and inquiring and all that, Council. So I have no knowledge.
I mean, one of the things that has emerged in these hearings is how dysfunctional it appears the department is, or was at the time. There are different people responsible for different things, and the two don't talk to each other. There are teams, but nobody takes responsibility as a leader. Would you agree with that view?
Yes, I agree. There was very little communication between, if I just take my own team, because of the haste and chaoticness of the implementation of this project, there wasn't real communication between us, I would say. Because there were 3 teams at different stations, and there was no real communication between us because of the execution of this project.
And the reason for that is because of the haste?
The haste, yes, Council.
And let me put the question a different way. Do you think that if you had complied with these guidelines, that people would have died?
I would have said yes. My observation, my thinking is yes, Council, because it would have been better and all the down referral would have been in a phased-in process and not as hectic, because if we can see for a 5-year plan just to execute half of the patients where the whole amount was down referred in 1.5 months' time, so it's not fair.
So are you agreeing with me or not?
Yes, I agree with you, yes.
So you're saying, when you said yes, you meant no, they would not have died?
No, I agree for the resultant, yes, because of the haste and what was going on.
Do you agree that had the guidelines been complied with, people would not have died?
Yes, because things would have been in place, finances would have been in place, a lot of things would have been in place, Council.
Well, that's right, because the other sort of category of requirements that we spoke about a little bit earlier today relating to financial governance are also quite detailed.
Yes.
And you agreed that those requirements were not complied with?
It wasn't in place, Council.
It was not in place?
Nothing was in place of finances, yes.
Okay. So there was non-compliance, there was a violation of those guidelines?
Yes.
And licenses were issued to those NGOs nevertheless. Isn't that so?
what happens, licenses are being issued in terms, because you cannot institute the financial procedure without a license. So licenses normally would be issued, and then the financial documentation will be submitted with the license to be implemented.
So when would would you grant a license to an NGO if an NGO did not have a bank account?
That is why I'm saying, ma'am, before the NGO even goes to the bank, they must have proof of all this documentation and a license. Then only...
Bank. But I'm not asking about their relationship with their bank. I'm asking about their relationship with you.
With a bank account, yes. You cannot open up...
No.
They cannot construct a data without a license.
No, the question is... Sorry. Let me ask it again.
Okay.
Can an NGO receive a license from the Department of Health?
Yes.
Without a bank account?
Yes, ma'am.
You will license them even if they don't have a bank account?
Yes, ma'am.
Why would you do that when one of the requirements is that they should have a bank account?
In terms of the bank account, it deals with all the accompanying constitution and all those procedures. But then the bank also requires now of late the proof of license in terms of registering a business. So they will compile all those documentation. The bank will open at times temporarily the bank account, and then compliance with all the documentation.
You're saying that the bank would not
stated
open
here.
a bank account unless the department gives a license to the NGO?
Ma'am, at first...
A license to the NGO?
Ma'am, at first they used to open up bank accounts without all this documentation. But because of the challenges being encountered at a later stage, the banks also has now new rules and regulations to these NGOs. Because they...
Sorry, Ms. Jacobus, doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. What is required from your list, the list that you drew up based on the guidelines, is one of the things you need to ensure is in place is that you've got the bank account details.
Yes.
And that you have a current bank statement.
Yes.
And that you have a tax clearance certificate.
Yeah, that needs to be in place. I get you now. It has to be in place.
So you would not be able to license an NGO without those criteria being met?
Without all these documentation, yes.
Yes. And yet, in this case, in this Life Esidimeni termination project, NGOs were licensed without
Council.
those things being in place.
Yes,
Isn't that
Council.
so?
Yes.
Yes. And you knew that public money would be used. Public money would be given to those NGOs based on those fraudulent licenses. Isn't that so?
Yes, Council.
And despite knowing that, you did not report it to any senior official within the department. Isn't that so?
It was reported. As I've said, I had a meeting with finance, and with the conclusion of the PFMA regulations, we couldn't do anything. We have to have this documentation in place before the department could start with implementation paying these NGOs.
Yes, but you didn't have any of that. So you were in violation of the PFMA.
Yes, it was only later afterwards, long after this, that the implementation of these documentations was submitted to the finance section.
So at the time that the licenses were issued to the NGOs,
it wasn't in place.
It was not in place.
No, ma'am.
That was a violation of the PFMA.
Yes.
The licenses were issued fraudulently. You've agreed.
Yes, ma'am.
That is a violation of the law.
Yes.
That is a criminal act.
Yes, Council.
Your yes must be clear. It must
I said yes, Council.
Yes. It must be recorded, so
okay.
it must be clear on the record. Thank you.
Okay, Justice.
And I'm saying in relation to that in particular, everything you've now agreed to, you did not report that to any senior official in the department.
I did report this to a senior in the department and Dr. Manamela. And then we were invited to a senior meeting where there were some of the senior officials within that meeting. And I've also made known this to the meeting about this, but there was no
Was Dr.
discussion.
Salabano there?
No, Dr. Salbano wasn't in that
Did you
meeting.
report it directly to him as the accounting officer?
To the project manager that
Not
was
to the
there.
accounting officer?
And all the senior managers that was in the meeting, I've raised this point.
But not
and
to
I
the
can't.
accounting officer?
The
Not to the
accounting
HOD?
officer, no, ma'am, because he has sent somebody that represent him in that meeting, because the person says that Dr. Salbano couldn't be here and he was asked to stand in for him, so you would have had or received the
But you
minutes.
yourself did not report it to the HOD?
No, ma'am.
And you didn't report it to the Provincial Treasury?
No, council.
And you didn't report it to the police?
No, council.
And did you report it to the MEC?
No, council. The MEC, I think, was in that meeting. She was in that meeting.
She was in the meeting?
In the meeting, yeah.
This meeting in which you're referring to the meeting where you pointed
Where I
out
pointed
that
out
these
about the financial
unlawful activities were going on.
Yes,
So she was aware that the unlawful activity was taking place.
yes, council. That things was not in place.
Yeah, and that the licenses were being fraudulently issued,
Yes, ma'am.
and that public money was going to go to those NGOs.
Yes, council.
You're saying she knew this because she was in the meeting?
Whether she understood it, I don't know, but she was in the meeting.
And what was the date of that meeting?
I can't recall, council. Is some time back. I can't recall.
Was it in 2015?
No, it was much later. I think 2016, somewhere in 2016.
In the
Even
obviously
after,
before
after the placements, it was after or during the placements, there was a special meeting where Dr. Manamela asked us to also attend with her. And that was that one meeting, yes.
it was after the licenses had been issued.
Yes, ma'am.
And why did you not report it to anybody else?
Ma'am, according my, I don't know, I thought because it was dealt with in a senior meeting and all senior officials was in that meeting, inclusive the Chief Director of Finance, that things would be done towards it and it will escalate. That was my assumption. And I honestly, with all this going on, and as I've said, the process was really hectic and we were really pressed because after that we had to rush and go and work again.
And you said that after you did raise the concerns, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that when you did raise the concerns, you were then sidelined from the project. Is that correct?
No, I was sidelined from the beginning. What happened after
From the
that
beginning?
meeting? Yes.
So hold on, one step at a time. You were sidelined. What do you mean by the beginning?
When there was a lot of things going on. Remember with this project, it was, I mean, even the court cases and all that. So the atmosphere wasn't conducive, if I can say that. And
The
it
atmosphere
was
was not
chaotic.
conducive.
Yeah, in the working environment in terms of normal procedure. And then after that meeting, finance called the district services to speedily submit documentation so that they can rectify and implement this.
So this was the beginning of, if you can talk about the litigation, that was the end of 2015. And we'll come to more detail
much
about
later.
the litigation, but I just want to get your timeline. The beginning, you say you were sidelined from the beginning, and the beginning was late 2015.
I don't know.
Now, it's quite, can you try to remember it?
Just ask the question again, ma'am.
See, you said that you were sidelined because you raised concerns.
Yes.
And then I asked you when you were sidelined, and you said from the beginning.
Yes, because I was assigned not to be the co-responsible person, but assigned to other tasks within the whole project.
And when was that when you were sidelined?
It
When
was
the
my
beginning?
observation during the whole this thing and my assignment.
But what was
and
the
then-
beginning? Was the beginning when you started looking at NGOs? Was the beginning after they had been licensed and the patients were being moved?
I think it was sort of after, a month or so after that. And not been given direct tasks to perform or execute.
But you were not any more centrally involved.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
correct? Can we get that?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that right?
From the beginning, the whole project was divided into sections, and Dr. Manamela assigned people all over, and other people came in to also support to execute the whole process.
So that's fine, but you were not centrally involved.
No,
Once
ma'am.
you were sidelined, you say that from the
I
beginning.
felt it was my feeling, it was my observation.
So, just on the NGOs, you were referred to an exhibit, LR 120, which was the minutes of the NGO meeting held on 13 November 2015.
Oh, I see it here. Yes, Council.
120. This was the meeting that you had called. Isn't that
The
so?
13, yes, 13/11 meeting.
13 November.
Yes.
And in the minutes of the meeting, it's they're very sparse minutes, but from the attendance register, there were many people who attended,
Yes, ma'am.
including members of Life Esidimeni,
Yes.
various NGOs,
Yes.
and family members,
Yes, ma'am.
and including the South African Federation of Mental Health.
Yes, it was quite a big comprehensive meeting.
And if you look at page 2 of those minutes, in the second, under number 7, the second block, it's written, what are the reasons for closure of Life Esidimeni? This is the question and answer session, am I right?
Yes.
And then it says, if it is deinstitutionalization, government is shifting responsibility. Government needs to find houses and let the NGO run with the process.
Yes, that was said in the meeting, Council.
And then in the column next to those questions, is that the response from the department?
Yes, that was Dr. Manamela's answer.
And the answer is that the presentation has addressed the issue as twofold. One is to upscale NGOs.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
is the meaning of that?
Upscale is to strengthen NGOs and to in a legal way so that they can perform in a better way. Upscaling. To strengthen
So-
what is existing, to make
Yes.
it in a better way, more qualitative
To
way.
strengthen NGOs to
Yes.
provide mental health services.
Yes, ma'am.
That was one of the reasons for the closure of Life Esidimeni.
That was how it was put, yes, the explanation by Dr. Manamela.
It wouldn't make sense, would it? Does it make sense to you?
No, ma'am. Because this question was raised by 2 NGO managers, and they've raised their view in terms of the life closure.
Because the logical thing would be to strengthen NGOs before you place patients, isn't
yes,
that so?
ma'am, yes.
And the second is financial struggle. What is meant by that?
She was saying that the department doesn't have enough money to keep on the services of Life Esidimeni.
And further down on the same page, right at the end, the last question was about families having raised their concerns. It says most families who were present in the meeting raised their dissatisfaction about the termination.
Yes, ma'am. That was the truth.
And in the column next to it, there's no response from the department. Why is that?
Ma'am, Dr. Manamela was chairing and this meeting, so I cannot answer for her.
But you were present at the meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
You called the meeting.
She instructed me to call the meeting, but she was chairing the meeting and handled everything.
And you were the deputy director responsible for oversight of NGOs.
Yes, ma'am.
And the family members were raising concerns.
Yes,
And what
Council.
was the response to the family members in this meeting?
Dr. Mana, in a way, she has put it also was that there will also be a platform for the family members to raise their family meetings will be planned to address that situation.
And did that take place?
Yes, it took place and the family members did raise, but the department didn't acknowledge the family members, according to my observation, concerns.
The department did not acknowledge the
All
family's
the
concern.
concerns, yes.
So was it just paying lip service by having these meetings? Was the department paying lip service?
Council, I cannot answer that because besides the meetings, there was other venues where the family members and the family committees expressed their concern, and even with senior management, but the process still continued.
And this was 13 November 2015, shortly before the litigation.
It was even after that family members continued.
Yes. Now I know, but I'm talking about this meeting.
Yes, yes.
And you say the family members' concerns
They raised this, yes, ma'am.
were not addressed.
Yes, ma'am.
So you proceeded with the termination.
Yes, Council.
And there was a termination project plan. And I'd like you to have a look at the plan. It's in file 1. If you're able to find file 1.
File 1, yes.
And it's at page 494.
$494.
Yes.
8. Can you name me the page number? Is it 12 or where will I find it, ma'am?
So at page 494. File 1.
This is one. This is 1, 2, 51. I thought it's this one. Then I don't have it yet. This is page 7. Oh, is it the one?
You found it?
491.
494 and
494.
onwards. Yes. Actually, it starts earlier. But the relevant page that I would like you to have a look at actually is 497. And I'd first like you to tell me if you are familiar with this.
Established vacant beds.
Yeah, sorry, 497.
497, yes.
Are you familiar with the document that's in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Right at the bottom it says Life Esidimeni Contract Termination Project Plan.
Yes.
You know this document?
Yes, ma'am.
And on page 497, there's a heading that says Facilitation and Coordination of the Placement of the Mental Health Care Users at NGOs. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
And in the second block, well, first it says establish vacant beds, and then it says meet with the NGOs for briefing. That was 13 November, which you did.
Yes.
And then identify users to go to these NGOs.
Yes, ma'am.
And that time frame is October, 1st October 2015 to 15 Feb. Do you see that? 2016.
Yes, Council.
How would you be able to identify the users to go to those NGOs before you've actually identified the NGOs? How would that be possible?
It was all, the NGOs were first started for identification and readiness. And while that process was on, certain members were then removed from that area and assigned to the 2 Life Esidimeni facilities to assist with identification and assessment of the users.
But you would have to first identify the NGOs before you could.
Yes, ma'am.
And you would need to know how many NGOs and what space would be available.
Yes.
And the next block it says identify and collect users from Life Esidimeni to the NGOs.
Yes.
And it gives a period 1 December 2015 to 26 February 2016. And it refers, who would have been responsible for that? task?
As I've said, Dr. Manamela has withdrawn 2 teams from our core team to assist with this process. 2 people were placed at Waverley and 2 at Randfontein.
2 people from
from the unit, from the Mental Health Directorate.
were placed at Life Esidimeni
Many.
facilities,
Yes, ma'am.
and their job was
to assess and assist with the down refer or down placement or
were they
placement of
medical
patients.
professionals?
They've worked with 2 medical doctors
Were medical
was.
doctors discharging the patients?
and a psychiatrist. They were part of the review board that was working at these life facilities. Dr. Watwala and Dr. Khan was assisting them. So the one
Were
doctor,
they department,
both psychiatrists, both psychiatrists.
and they worked for Life Esidimeni?
And they were serving on the review board. They had sessions at Life Esidimeni, yes, ma'am.
Did they discharge the patients from Life Esidimeni?
Yes, ma'am.
And they
Yes, the
said
same.
that these patients are eligible to discharge to where?
And according my knowledge,
To where? Where would they be eligible for discharge?
to
whom? To what?
NGOs and hospitals.
But how would they know? Were they told that these were the NGOs that are available? And can you please assess the patients to determine which NGO would be suitable for their medical condition? Is that what happened?
Yes, and in terms of placement, ma'am, what I gather of,
Is that
I
what
don't know.
happened?
Yes,
So we have different evidence to that effect. We have evidence from Dr. Morgan Mkachwa, who was the manager of Life Esidimeni at
Yes.
the time.
Mm.
And his testimony was that he repeatedly requested the list of the NGOs from the department, and it was never provided. What do you say to that?
I cannot answer that, ma'am, because remember Dr. Manamela was in charge of the project and she was handling all the,
So, as deputy
everything.
director responsible for NGOs, you
Bear
were
no
not
knowledge.
you were not aware.
and
So,
not
in this
involved.
document, when it refers to your name, and for example, if you turn to page 499. Page 499, and again, this is the project plan.
Yes,
Just under halfway down the page, identify new NGOs and assist in applications and compliance. It includes your name. Do you see that?
yes, ma'am.
So you were part of the team.
Part of the team, but remember this project plan, even if one takes one adjudication, a lot of these processes didn't take place in terms of
So
executing.
where's the list of NGOs provided to Life Esidimeni?
Council, I have no idea. I cannot answer on that. It wasn't asked from me. I'm sure that it was asked from Dr. Manamela, and she was doing most of the admin.
Most of the admin.
Yeah, or whatever was requested to execute it, it wasn't communicated to me. So I don't know whether, I have no knowledge that it was asked by Life.
So Dr. Mkachwa, in his testimony, specifically referred to you and the request for the list of the NGOs. And his testimony was quite detailed because he said he also offered to assist in vetting the NGOs. Do you
No.
recall that?
No, ma'am. I can't recall that.
In fact, his testimony was, and his actual words were, we requested for that, meaning the lists, time and time again, and up until the last day of the patient leaving, we still did not know where they were going.
The information wasn't directed to me, ma'am, so I have no knowledge about that.
You've no knowledge.
But it was maybe directed to the section, to the Mental Health Directorate, where Dr. Manamela received the information.
Did anybody else request the list of NGOs from you?
A list of NGOs? Not really, ma'am. Not from me directly.
Not from you directly?
No.
Were you aware of requests that had been made?
No, ma'am.
If not to you directly, but you were not aware of
The
requests being made for
other
for the list of NGOs?
The other request that was made to ask for the list was the finance section,
Within the department?
Within the department, yes.
So, do you know an organization called SASOP, the South African
SASOP,
Society?
yes.
And they requested the list on 16 March 2015. And that is to be found in file 1, which you have open in front of you, but at page 379. The document starts at page 376. Are you at page 376?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Do you see that those are minutes of a meeting
Yes.
between SASOP
Yes.
and the Gauteng Mental Health Directorate?
Yes.
And it's dated 16 March 2015. And you were present. Do you
Yes,
see
I was
that?
present in that meeting.
You were present in that meeting. And the Life Esidimeni, the issue of the closure of the termination of the contract, rather, is at page 379. And right at the end, the last item under paragraph 6, it
Yes,
says that a
ma'am.
list of patients from Life Esidimeni and the NGOs to which they are transferred, that topic, that would be provided by the
Yes, I
Gauteng
see that.
department. Do you see that?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
now do you remember that there was another request for the list
Yes, I
of
remember
NGOs?
now. I can see this here, yeah.
And it was by SASOP.
Yes.
And do you recall whether it was provided to them?
No, I can't recall, ma'am, but I don't think so. I think what also happened here, there was an answer from Dr. Manamela, because at that stage, the list of transferable patients to the different areas from Life, the list wasn't ready as yet to specific NGOs.
There was no list.
No, there was a list afterwards, because the two teams constructed a list of patients that needs to go down to NGOs and some that has to go to hospitals.
Was there a list of NGOs that had been accredited and licensed by March 2015?
No,
Did
ma'am,
you
it
have a
was-
list?
No, no.
Why was there an undertaking to provide a list when one didn't exist?
Ma'am, the project plan document, we as colleagues within the directorate wasn't part of this. I don't know. Dr. Manamela was steering this, and I think what she has said that the senior management are compiling this document.
The senior management.
Yes, I think so, because even discussing it with my colleagues and they all said that they were not part of compiling this project plan, but we had knowledge about it afterwards. We've seen it.
But the page that I just referred to you to in the project plan, the page 499, lists your name, and the time frame is 1 October 2015 to 1 January 2016 for identifying new NGOs. Do you see that?
Yes,
and
ma'am.
assisting with compliance.
Yes.
So you were the person who'd been tasked.
As I'm saying this document, but when the execution started, we were assigned to different areas. So I didn't just do all
So
the
is there
NGOs.
anything that we can make from this termination project plan that was provided to us? Is there any information in it that's reliable?
I cannot account to that, because some part of these...
Did you comply with the timeframes in this project plan?
No, we didn't comply with the time frames.
And
Not
you
with all
didn't
the time
comply
frame,
with
not
the
all the time.
substantive requirements either, did you?
Excuse me?
You didn't comply with substantive requirements either.
The basic requirements?
So
of
assisting in compliance.
No, I did. We did. Remember, as I've said, I called in because of the haste to identify and complete the process, and because we didn't follow the normal route, I've engaged the engineers to assist me with their task.
Yeah, but you didn't comply. The next block on the same page, you are one of the members of the team responsible for adjudicating and licensing the new NGOs.
No adjudication.
And the time frame there is October 2015 to 28 Feb 2016.
No, man, we didn't comply
didn't
to
do
it. There
it.
were no adjudication.
And then the block immediately below that says transfer user to these NGOs. Transfer user, the language is not very clear, to these NGOs. Do you see that?
I'm trying to get back to the page now, ma'am. Can you just give me the page again, please?
Okay, it's a page 499.
499. Yes.
Transfer the users to the
Yes.
NGOs.
Yes.
And the people responsible, it says, as above, and NGO managers. Do you see that?
Yes.
And the time frame there is 25 February to 31 March 2016. It's a period of 1 week.
But it wasn't. It went beyond that time frame.
It went
and
beyond
the
that time frame.
implementation has started even later than that time frame.
Was it realistic to transfer so many patients in the period of a week?
No, Council. It wasn't.
Do you have any explanation for why 1 week would be allocated in the plan?
As I've said, Council, I wasn't part of the author coming up with this document, so I don't know why that time frame was written down.
But you were a
But
member
with
of the meetings and you participated in the implementation of the project, even if you
Yes.
didn't draft this document.
Yes.
Did you raise at any time your concern with the
Yes, ma'am.
impossibility of this plan?
We did, Council. At several levels, at several meetings, we've raised it.
So it was not actually implemented, this plan?
The project plan
As
was
it's written.
implemented, but as it's written down, there was a lot of time frames and executions that wasn't according to this plan.
So there's actually not much use to us, that plan, is it?
Yes.
You also received a request from SADAG, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, for a list of NGOs. Do you remember that?
It was asked in a meeting, and Dr. Malamela has promised to send and forward that request. So whether it was executed, I don't know, ma'am.
So you do remember SADAG requesting
Yeah,
the list?
we had several meetings with all stakeholders.
And you don't know whether it was ever sent?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you aware of the meeting of 20th January 2016?
20th January.
If you look at file 2, at page 631, are you there?
Almost. Yes, Council.
These are minutes of the meeting of 20th February.
Yes.
Do you remember this meeting?
With Life and Dr. Salabano, no, ma'am.
Were you
We
not
were
present
part
at this
of
meeting?
This meeting, no.
Were these minutes provided to you afterwards?
No, Council.
Was not provided to you?
No, Council.
Why would it not have been provided to you if it was such, and this is an important meeting relating to the termination of the project and involving the issue of NGOs. Why
Council-
did you not?
Justice, if I can explain this. Due to the activities and chaoticness of this project, a lot of activities happened and meetings that we were not involved with. And we only see or received information at a later stage when you ask something or when you get hold of these minutes. I haven't seen this immediately after this meeting.
Okay, so you say you were not there
No.
and you were
Council.
never informed? And you were never informed
No, Council.
about the purpose of the meeting and the
No,
contents
only
of
at
the
the
discussion?
later stage I was, when I saw the minutes
What is
in
the later
office.
stage?
It was much, much later. I think it was almost, it was after the project. was concluded that I've seen this.
So, at the point at which the South African Federation of Mental Health and SADAG and the concerned families went to court, they still didn't have the list, isn't that so?
I cannot account to that, ma'am. I can't answer because I haven't sent a list to any of the organizations. I was present, I think, with
Why
at 2
didn't you send a list if you were aware that you weren't aware of all of the requests, of
Yes.
all of the meetings, but you were aware that there were concerned organizations representing the stakeholders, representing families, representing patients. They were independent from the department. They requested a list of the NGOs. You were aware of that. Why did you
Yes.
not provide it to them?
Because Dr. Manamela said she would send the list from the office.
And was there no space for making sure from your side that this had taken place?
Ma'am, again, with the pressure of this project, there was not always time to go back and follow up because after activities you have to do something else and jump again and you have to be all over. The project was really rushed.
Yes. But you were aware of the concerns of the families, weren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were aware of the protests and the marches that were taking place.
Yes, ma'am. I was in 2 family meetings where the concerns was raised at Waverley and at Randfontein.
And it was perfectly reasonable for the family members to be that concerned.
I agree, ma'am.
And in fact, all of their concerns were not addressed by the department.
No, ma'am.
And their fears came to fruition.
Yes, ma'am.
And why was the department so dismissive of the family's concerns?
Council, I cannot answer for that because we've raised concerns from our side. Various organizations raised concerns. There were court cases, and we've hoped that the department will listen. Dr. Mazamisa, as I've said, a week before implementation, we had an informal meeting, and she agreed that she will support
Sorry,
if we want
I've
to
been
stop.
asked if you could please speak up or into the mic. People are having
sorry.
difficulty hearing.
So there was various activities taking place to stop the process, and the department didn't listen to anyone. I mean, I'm just a very small fish trying to execute, and yes, I've participated, but as I'm saying, I didn't anticipate that things would go wrong. I've tried my level best to support, and I was thinking about the patients, and if I don't act on these things, my real concern
I put it
was
to you that you
patients.
weren't thinking about the patients, because if you were thinking about the patients, you wouldn't have participated in this project. And you did continue to participate, even though you say you raised your concerns. Isn't that so?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you know that the 2015 litigation was settled out of court?
Yes, we've heard that afterwards. Dr. Nomela gave us feedback in a meeting.
What did she tell you?
She just said when she addressed us, she just says that there was a court case because there was a certain period where we didn't continue and we had to do other work that she assigned to us. Then she said we must stop that work. There was a court case and everything is positive. We must continue with the identification with immediate effect.
Was this after the case had been settled out of court?
Ma'am, no explanation or details were given, whether it was out of settlement. I can't recall.
So
I can't.
she said
can't
to
talk
you,
that.
after the settlement, are you saying that Dr. Manamela said to you that just proceed as originally
Yes.
planned? Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know that the basis of the settlement agreement was that no patients would be transferred to a facility that did not provide equal or better care? Did you know that?
What we gather after we spoke and speak to the review board members, we became aware of that.
So
And
why
then
did you, that was in December 2015.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you become aware that the agreement between the department and the parties to the litigation, the other parties?
After the court case, and I can't remember when the court case was because we were not informed about these court cases.
But you were then
Only the other-
informed that the understanding was that the transfer of patients would
Can
only
continue.
be to NGOs
Yes, that
where
is
they would
ready.
receive equal or better care.
Yes, ma'am.
So why did you continue now, apart from having ignored other legal prescripts, to ignore this settlement agreement by placing patients in NGOs that could not provide proper care?
Counsel, can I, Justice through you, can I explain? After the identification, information was given through to Dr. Malamela
Identification of
of
what or
NGOs,
whom?
the readiness of NGOs. Information was given to Dr. Malamela of NGOs that was ready and NGOs that was not. And as I've said, there was no communication between us and the placing team. Dr. Malamela will then contact the placing team and instruct them where to place patients.
But you were aware that the NGOs couldn't provide proper care, isn't that so?
Yes, Counsel, because of everything that was not in place.
And it,
And you know, you're under oath. You've got to think through what you're saying to us. We're trying to get to the truth. The
Counsel,
initial evidence was there was no list of NGOs. Now there was. It was in two parts. You really have to think through, and you must be careful not to perjure yourself. Listen to the question and answer it as honestly and as truthfully as you know. That's what that oath is about.
can you repeat?
isn't it true that you were aware after the litigation that patients were being transferred to NGOs that could not provide adequate care?
Counsel, as I'm saying again, I'm trying to answer as truthfully as I can. The placement of patients was communicated to different team members within the directorate. And
So
Dr.
you didn't know.
Manamela-
It's again left hand not knowing what the right hand
I
is doing.
didn't
Is
know
that your
where to.
answer?
Yes, I was. I only become aware afterwards, after the placement. when
Is
we
that
have
how
to
the
act.
department always functions?
No, ma'am, this was chaotic, and I agree it wasn't fair. It's
But-
not always.
But you were aware that the NGOs wouldn't provide the care. The reason you were aware is because you were aware that there had not been compliance
Yes.
with the legal prescripts. Is that not so?
Yes, Counsel.
You knew that already.
Yes.
So you didn't need to be part of a big team or anything. You knew that. You'd raised the concern. Yet you continued to participate. Isn't that so?
Yes, I regret it was a omission from my side.
It's a
in
separate
that
question from
document.
having raised it with your seniors or reported it. It's about your own continued
Yes.
participation. And you agree that you continued to participate. Were you aware of the litigation in 2016, in March 2016?
Was that the other court case?
Yes.
I was aware of that one.
That was the one where families tried to prevent the transfer of patients to Takalani.
I'm not yet sure because I know that Dr. Namela summoned us to one court meeting in Johannesburg. And it's only there that we've heard what was going on within that meeting, what the reasons was.
A meeting of whom?
In the High Court,
You mean the hearing?
the hearing, yes.
You attended the hearing?
Yes,
And in the hearing, the argument had been made that Takalani was not suitable.
yes, yes.
And the department's position was that it had been accredited and licensed and it was suitable.
Yes, ma'am.
And you were in agreement with that?
With Takalani, yes, Takalani was there was that everything of theirs was in place with Takalani.
So there was no concern, felt no concern when you were at the hearing about the position that had been taken by the department?
The
You were-
department, ma'am, I don't know how to put this. Because my knowledge of Takalani and what is in place, they can adequately host mental health care patients, and they have their HR component is in good standing.
So they were an NGO that was taking care of children, isn't that so?
Yes, ma'am.
And in this process of the termination project, Life Esidimeni patients, adults, were going to be transferred to Takalani. Isn't that so?
No, according the license, they were supposed to have children counsel.
Yes, but my point is that the project required adult mental health care users to be transferred to Takalani. That's what the case was about. You were at the hearing, you said.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I can't remember all the detail, counsel, but
Were there any
because-
children that were being transferred in the Life Esidimeni termination project?
no, counsel.
No. So adults were being transferred to Takalani.
Yes,
And Takalani was a place for children.
for children, yes.
And in your experience and in your very senior responsibility as overseeing NGOs responsible for mental health services, is it appropriate for adults and children to be in the same facility?
When we raised that with Dr. Manamela after the
Is it appropriate?
and discussed it, it's not appropriate.
Yet it
but
was taking place.
Yes,
And when the families tried to stop it through the court case, the department resisted that.
I believe so, ma'am.
Well, you were there in court.
Yes, yes.
That
And
didn't concern you.
ma'am, it did concern me because during and after the court case, the court case was awarded to the department. And what can I do? I'm not even a much higher body than me was handling that.
Yes, but that's because there were officials in the department that were putting false information to the court.
I'm not aware who constructed that information. Ma'am, I cannot talk on behalf of that.
Do you know how many patients died at Takalani after that move, after that court case?
No, ma'am, I can't say that out of my head, but no, I can't really.
38.
Sure.
38 died. Did you know that men and women were not separated?
I've heard that afterwards, ma'am, when officials were sent in to go and work there.
And do
When
you
I
know
asked-
that there were reports of rape?
No, ma'am, I'm not aware of that.
Are you aware that there was a typhoid outbreak soon after that court case, 2 months later?
I've heard from when we were going out with environmental health, they informed me that they're busy at Takalani with that outbreak.
And that was in June 2016.
Yes, ma'am.
And you still continued to participate in this project because it wasn't over yet. In fact, it was really just now getting going. Isn't that so?
By then, I think 3/4 of the patients has been placed at various NGOs. Most of the patients has been placed then.
Yes, a lot of patients were transferred in that period. And where I'd like to take you to is the licensing. You said that you were not involved in accrediting or licensing in checking the compliance of the NGOs.
Yes, for checking for compliance, ma'am, you're right. We
Sorry,
did
say
not
that again?
execute. No, I did not execute any measures to check compliance of licensing. That was not involved.
Do you visit any NGOs
Yes, ma'am.
for the purposes of conducting an audit?
Yes, we have done that as the marathon project, as I've said. And hence, because of the hasty of the project, again, I've asked the facility and planning people to assist me in support of their engineers with expert advice.
Can I ask you to look at file 7, please? And And if you could look at page 2450.
Mine ends at 2416. Or if I continue, 2450.
2450. It's an audit report for Tsepong.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see it?
This, yes.
And you conducted this audit, is that so?
As I've said, ma'am, I was not at Sepong, but what happened was we were assigned to certain NGOs, and one of my colleagues conducted this audit at Sepong. I wasn't there in person.
No, actually,
But I
Ms.
know it
Jacobus,
was
you
done.
were there. Please turn to page 2453.
24.
Right, 2453, just a few pages on into the audit report.
Yes.
2453, right at the bottom of the page, it says inspection conducted by, and the first name is H. Jacobus. Do you see that?
Oh, yeah, I see now. Ma'am, these things are way back, and I can't remember all, honestly.
So you did conduct
I
an inspection at Sepong.
Yes. Supported with the conduction.
If you look at, you were at 2453. Look at the next page, 2454.
Yes.
Under the comment section at the top, there's a handwritten note.
Yeah.
It says, presently, we don't have any funds as we are still trying to renovate the institution and start admitting the clients. That's under the section that deals with organizational information.
Yes, I see that.
That's the kind of information we were talking about earlier. Bank accounts,
And
bank
all that, yeah.
statements. You know, do you have sufficient funds? All of those important factors, right?
Is the question, do we have sufficient funds?
Well, I'm saying that this section on organizational information, if you look at it,
Yes.
the information, the meaning of organizational information
Yes, I know that.
is about whether the organization
Yeah, funding.
is functioning properly and has funds,
Yes.
and it says not presently we don't have any
Yes,
funds.
there's organization, yes.
Okay. And then at 2456, again a handwritten note at the bottom of the page.
Yes.
It's meant to explain the
Okay.
staffing, correct? So the typed question is, are these ratios, meaning the staff to client ratio, adequate for safe care? And then it says yes or no, both boxes are ticked. Well, one has a cross, one has a tick. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then below that it says, if no, what are the minimum staffing requirements and so on, requirements.
Yes.
So, and then there's a note underneath that.
Yes, I see
So could we take it from that in fact the answer was no to the question about the ratios?
that. Yes, when we were there, there was only one professional nurse and one caregiver on the premises. And no other
So that's
personnel.
correct. So the
Yes.
note says, if I'll read it with you, it says we
Yes.
need one nursing manager for overall
Yes.
administration, 6 professional nurses for nursing, the ward, and 5 enrolled nurses, 5 male auxiliary male nurses, and 6 female nurses,
Yes.
10 care workers, males and females.
That was the requirement for that
That was the
centre.
requirement.
Yes.
Okay. So if you turn the page over again, 2457. The first box at the top of the page is whether there, apart from nursing staff, whether there is other medical staff
it's needed.
to provide services. Is that so? So, medical officers, the question is, are there medical officers? The answer is that there would be state medical officers for 4 hours a week. Is that right?
Yes,
And psychiatrists also for 4 hours in the week.
yes, ma'am.
And would these medical officers visit the NGO? Would they go to Tsepong once a week to see the patients?
It depends on the staffing, but they would visit the NGO.
Did they do so in Tsepong? Was that the arrangement that was made?
During the project, it didn't happen, but what we've done, we raised and we discussed it in the district, and the district has assigned 2 doctors to visit most of these NGO. I went to Kalafong and I got 2 doctors there to assist, and that was the
To
doctors
assist
that
with
was-
Tsepong?
Not just Tsepong, but also the other NGOs, and they've divided themselves into these different NGOs to assist.
To assist, to provide 4 hours a week?
Yeah.
And
No-
did they do so?
Yes, they visit, because some of these
They,
doctors
they
even went on
visited
a
the
Saturday.
NGOs themselves?
Yes, to go and assist and assess for prescriptions, to assist with the prescriptions and assessment of these patients.
And is it your testimony that they did that?
Yes, I'm saying, ma'am, not on a regular basis. And that is why we've included and roped in other doctors, because one doctor from Kalafong has offered up his free time, and he used to assist us on a Saturday and Sunday to visit NGOs where we had problems, to assist with this process. And one
You
from
see-
Makhura. So it wasn't constant because of the time frame, and then also the HR concerns within the district, that people would go that on a regular basis.
You see, if you read the written note underneath that box, the
Yes.
plan is a little different to what you've just said. It's the other way around, that if there isn't a medical officer available, that what you call the client, the mental health care user, will be referred to Kalafong with a referral letter for evaluation and assessment.
Yes, but
And was there transport available
ma'am,
for the
that-
mental health care users?
No, ma'am, that is why I've said I've instituted and roped in the doctors to assist. And then that is where I got the medical officers and
Okay, so let's just take it
principals.
step by step
Yeah.
in relation to this particular NGO.
Mm-hmm.
There was no transport available
Yes.
to perform this task of taking
Yes, it's
the
right.
patients to the doctors, since the
Yes.
doctors could not come to the patients. Is that
Yes,
so?
yes.
Okay. Then the next question underneath that is there a need to improve access for clients to any of the MDT? By MDT, it means multidisciplinary team, is that right?
Yes, yes.
And the answer is yes. And the handwritten note says, we arrange with any of the MDT, which is the medical officers, psychiatrists, occupational therapists,
Whatever, yes.
physiotherapists, all of that, to contact him telephonically in case of emergency. If he agrees, we request him to give us his contact number. What does that mean?
That was the initial plan on this, but as I'm saying, Council, because of our observation and what was taking place, we couldn't stick to this plan. I've roped in a doctor from Kalafong, Makhura, several doctors,
And what did you say to the
divide them.
doctors? If there's an emergency, can we call him?
No, I've roped them in to come and assist, not emergency, on a normal basis. And those, like the hospital doctors that couldn't get away, they would do it after hours and on Saturdays. And like one from Kalafong even came out on a Sunday to assist.
Were you satisfied with the access to medical care for the mental health care users at Tsepong?
No, ma'am.
Can you turn to page 2461, please? Under emergency equipment, right at the bottom,
Yes,
under the question, are drugs for physical emergencies available? It's ticked no.
yes,
Are drugs for psychiatric emergencies available? No.
yes,
Are the checklists signed and dated? No.
yes.
And then the next page, care of clients. Do you see that there's handwritten notes on this page?
Yes,
the first topic is nourishment. That's the word that's used. You see that?
Yes, Council.
And then there's a note, clients must be given a well-balanced diet. Does that mean that they were not receiving a well-balanced diet?
At that stage, what we've observed, it wasn't a well-balanced diet.
Wasn't a well-balanced diet.
Yes.
And then it says special diet to be provided to appropriate clients.
Yes, that.
Example, diabetics.
Yeah. I want to
Because
say
it was
that
not being
diabetics.
provided at the time.
Yes.
And then under cleanliness, it says clients are severely disabled, should be assisted in bathing. Is that because they were not being assisted?
Ma'am, I can't remember the full detail of this audit because remember we were 3 from the office that assisted in each one a different area. But what I assume it should mean that.
So this is, the section is 9, care of client, observations on client status. Just trying to make sense of the notes. So under cleanliness, it says clients are severely disabled. Those who are severely disabled should be assisted in bathing. Is that a note to the NGO to say that they ought to be doing that?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And under pressure sores, bedridden clients to be changed position frequently. Sheepskin and other equipments for preventing bed sores must be available. Changing of positions must be recorded in the positions chart.
Yes.
Those were not taking place. All of those requirements were not in place.
At some of these things, it was taken place, but there was no evidence. And according to record, if there's no evidence, we cannot say it was executed.
So as far as you
So-
knew, it was not taking place.
I cannot say that, ma'am, but because there was no evidence, there was no written record of this. Like the NGO said it was done, but there was no proof that it was done.
Well, did you find the sheepskin and other equipment for preventing bed sores? Was that available?
No, there wasn't a sheepskin, ma'am.
Under open wounds, the note is U-Sol for cleaning wounds, wound ointments and dressings, equipments must be used. Client to be seen by medical officer to check if client requires change of medicine. That note is being made because it was not taking place.
No,
Isn't
it
that
wa-
so?
The medication, that is why I've said when we realized what was going on, I roped in doctors from various places to assist us, to assist with the examination and prescriptions and all that.
Yes. But apart from that point, it says that wounds should be cleaned using a disinfectant.
Yes.
Isn't that what the note says?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And was that note written because that was not taking place at Tsepong?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it
If
was.
the note is written like that, yes.
And so it goes. You could continue going through this audit report.
What prompted the audit?
This audit was conducted after the placement justice. And remember
Why did you do it in simple language?
because we didn't have knowledge about the patients that was placed and what their conditions was, what was going on. So we were visiting all these NGOs within that area.
You know what intrigues me about this evidence and what has been elicited through cross-examination is your stance was that you were sidelined. You had no role in all this. You were an innocent bystander. You first denied that you were present at the audit, and now you remember everything about the audit. Do you want to explain that?
Justice, this audit was done after the placement. And I said I wasn't sidelined as a bystander. After Dr. Manamela has developed a NGO support list where we have to go out to visit all these NGOs. And at times when I do have time, I didn't just visit those that I was assigned to, I also supported the others when they asked me to come and see what is going
my
on.
last question to you is, you were the head of the NGO service for the province.
Yes, Justice.
And you want to leave us the impression that you were some innocent small fry sitting somewhere on the side and marginalized. Why is that your evidence?
Justice, it's not my evidence. I'm not saying that I was sidelined and an innocent small fry. Remember, if I was executing my core function, I was supposed to have taken all these steps into consideration. But because I wasn't alone in this project and the task is being divided to several people, I could not execute it on my own.
Ms. Jacobus, you said that it was hectic, there were many teams. You did say you were sidelined. There were only a few NGOs that you audited.
I was assigned to.
This is one of them.
No, ma'am. I didn't. I wasn't assigned to. I supported. I went with.
This is one NGO in which you conducted the inspection.
I was part of the team of a group that went out to Tsepolia.
I'm not interested in the team. You were there.
Yes.
You were the most senior person present,
Yes.
isn't that so?
Yes, ma'am.
And you conducted the audit.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had these findings and you licensed the NGO anyway, isn't that so?
Council, the NGO was licensed before the audit. During the license
So after this
procedure-
audit, did you say that we should withdraw the license for this NGO because they're not compliant?
Council, we've discussed it, but there were no other places or hospitals to place these patients at that stage.
So
And
you continued to, because there was a new license given to Tsepong,
I'm not aware of the license.
but in which you helped to prepare. It's page 2387.
Oh, is that the license of Dr. Salabano?
No, it's a license of Dr. Manamela.
28?
2387. It's in the same file that you had open. And it was licensed. Do you see the license? 2387, license for 170 people. Can you confirm that, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Do you know how many people died at Tsepong?
No, I'm not aware, ma'am. I think what I've been told, there was 2 people that died at Sapong.
It was actually 13.
13. I'm not aware of all the deaths at all the NGOs.
You're not aware of all the deaths?
No, ma'am.
But why aren't you aware, though? I mean, why aren't you aware? You are the head of the NGOs in the province. People die at NGOs, and you don't know. Why? Because you don't care?
Can I answer that, Justice? Yes, I do care. In the NGOs where I was part of, and if the NGOs called me in, we were constantly taking patients to clinics and hospitals.
No,
for
it's your
help.
work to make sure NGOs are properly licensed, they comply with the prerequisites, and they take care of mental health care users. They are the crown of your job. Your work is to look after them, and you are paid to do that. Why don't you even know who died where? Why? In a place where you are in charge. Why is it so?
Justice, with all due respect, in case, again, with the hasteness, we were all over on a daily basis. We were really frantic, running all over to support and assist the patients that was having problems.
Thanks, Justice. Sorry, Ms. Jacobus. I've been asked again to ask you to please raise your voice or speak closer to the mic. You see, Ms. Jacobus, 13 people died between January 2016
Yes, Council.
and January 2017 at Tsepong.
Okay.
You say you were not aware of all the deaths. When did you first become aware of the deaths?
When we were called to a meeting with Dr. Manamela, then she informed us.
When was that?
I can't remember the exact date, Council.
Do you remember the year?
2016. It was.
Do you remember
late.
the month?
I can't remember the month, but it was a bit late in 2016.
And what were you told in this meeting by Dr.
That
Makhura?
we have to visit NGOs more and also take more NGOs on because there's challenges and she feels worried about the patients at NGOs.
And
so,
there were challenges.
yes.
Did
of
she
the
say there were
patients.
deaths?
She said there were a few deaths and
How
challenges.
many deaths?
At that stage, she didn't give us the amount of deaths.
Did it give you concern when she
Yes.
informed you that people were dying?
Yes, ma'am.
But by September 2016, you've become aware, isn't that
Yes,
so?
yes.
By September,
Yes.
that there were deaths were on the increase.
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you become aware of that?
Also through a meeting
Meeting of?
in the office by Dr. Manamela.
And that's also this September 2016 was when the MEC answered a parliamentary question.
Yeah, I yes.
But
Do you
before
remember that?
then, why did you get out of your office and go and see what's happening to the NGOs where patients have been placed? Why do you wait for a meeting in your head office in Johannesburg?
Council, can I answer that?
Yes.
We were not in the offices even. I was in the Cullinan and all the other areas east of Pretoria working there. And as I've said, there was a lot of challenges with the patients in terms
No, but
of.
you heard of NGOs and you hear people are dying. Isn't it important to stop further deaths?
By then, all the patients have been placed, Justice.
Yes, they're placed but are dying. Why don't you go out, each one of them, to go and see their lot, to see how they are faring?
I was.
Under NGOs which are under your jurisdiction. Why didn't you do that?
Justice, I couldn't go to all the NGOs
Why
myself.
not? That's the question.
Because of the amount of NGOs and the work it incurred. Remember, these NGOs there was a lot of challenging, and patients were, at some of these NGOs, the patients were very ill.
How could you spread people all over NGOs? They become ill, and you say you don't have resources to look after them. How much care is that in you and your colleagues? Why must we believe you cared at all?
We did get. We've tried our best to do and execute wherever we can on long hours.
Thank you, Justice. How many NGOs were there?
Of the Life Esidimeni
Yes.
placements, 27.
And that was too many for you to visit.
Each one, because of the challenges, just on the eastern side alone, the patients we had to transport patients on a daily basis to hospitals.
So what was your job? What were you doing?
I was placed at the eastern side to look after those NGOs there.
And
the others were assigned
did
to
you
the
monitor
others.
the patients after they had been transferred?
Yes, Council.
You
On
monitored
a
to make
daily
sure that they
basis.
were faring well.
And there's everything, they have all
And you
everything.
didn't have a problem. You didn't find any problem.
They were, Council.
But you didn't do anything about it.
I did, Council.
Were you aware of the deaths yourself by your own visits to the NGOs?
With my visits to these NGOs, I wasn't. There were no deaths the time when I was visiting them. In the NGOs that I worked at, there were no deaths, ma'am, at that stage.
You see, one of the things that didn't take place was that nobody went after the patients were transferred to the NGOs. Nobody went afterwards to monitor the patient's progress. Isn't that so?
We've monitored a few, as I've said. We've monitored Popolong. There's quite a number of them that we've monitored, and even transporting patients.
Did you monitor
taking-
patients' welfare at Precious Angels?
No, somebody else was assigned to Precious Angels. Dr.
At
Mlamela
Tsepong?
Tsepong was also, Mrs. Sanella was assigned to
Wasn't you?
Tsepong. No, ma'am.
Takalani?
Takalani was somebody from
Was somebody
Johannesburg.
else?
Yes.
It wasn't you. Anchor?
Anchor, I was at Anchor,
You were
assigned
at
to
Anchor.
Yes, Anchor, Sebadinga, Bopolong, all those NGOs on that side.
Okay.
But,
So we'll come to those in a moment.
okay.
I just want to before you get past the licensing issue. You said Precious Angels had received a license for Califong Heights.
Yes, ma'am.
And my learned colleague drew your attention to LA 26, the license which says Califong Heights on it.
Yes.
But we also know in the record there's another license for Linwood Road.
Yes,
and you
ma'am.
said you had nothing to do with the Linwood Road one.
Yeah, what I remember from the Linwood
Just
license.
the yes or no?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And Califong, you did.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes.
You were responsible for that
Yes.
license. But why would you have issued a license for Califong when the NGO was not based in Califong? It was in Atteridgeville. And you knew it was in Atteridgeville because you visited it in Atteridgeville. Isn't that so?
Council, as I've said, these licenses were constructed before 1st of April. And the placements was only after that. And when, what I was told was when Califong Heights wasn't ready, Dr. Mnamela has asked the Precious Angels person to look for another area where they could go. Then she phoned myself and Mr. Tabani. We went to the venue in Atteridgeville, and the place that she pointed out was suitable. But because of the patient, and I said again, the haziness of the project, I said, well, we don't even know what type of patients are going to be placed there, because as far as I know, the children from Baneng project was stopped, and there would be no children from Baneng. And it was only afterwards that we've been said that patients was placed at
But does that
Precious
explain
Angels.
why a license would be issued for Califong when there was no NGO in Califong?
Yes, the license was made out before the 1st of April.
Yeah, it was a fictional. It was fictional, wasn't it?
Yes, ma'am, because the place wasn't ready.
Yes. So why did you do that?
Dr. Manamela instructed me to comply and made out all the licenses for the new financial year according to the records that we have.
So it was a fictional license that you provided and that Dr. Manamela signed.
According to the budget letter, I've made it out according to that. There were no other
Dr.
staff in
Manamela
the
has testified
documentation.
that she was dependent on you to prepare the licenses and to assure her that all the criteria had been met for the license to be issued, and that you had done so, and on that basis she signed it. What do you say to that?
I said no, ma'am. Dr. Manamela was aware, no proper audits was done, no adjudication was performed, no documentation was at hand, and she's aware of that because I've alluded on everything. When I engaged the district to assist with documentation, she said the district should stop because, as I've said, there was a lot of things going on. Hence, there was nothing in place. And she said I must just use the budget letter and construct all these licenses. So
and you
she's
did so
aware it
knowing
wasn't
that
there.
they were false.
Yes, ma'am, I know I've handled wrongly. I should have maybe...
The answer is yes, is it?
Yes. Yes.
So, and the NGOs we referred to earlier, you say they were not your responsibility, they were somebody else's responsibility.
Yes, we were divided into different areas.
They were your
too.
juniors, though.
No, my colleagues, all the deputies, we were not in the office at all. We were assigned to different NGOs, a few NGOs to support these NGOs.
And were there ever meetings between you and your colleagues?
At that stage, no, ma'am. Very
Meetings to discuss what you were finding, how the project was being implemented, whether the patients were fine. No joint discussions.
No, ma'am, not at that stage because there was a lot of challenges and we were running and sorting out all the challenges.
So the NGOs that you do admit to having some responsibility for are Anchor and Siabadenga.
Papalong and Sebasarina, yes.
And do you know how
El
many
Shaddai.
patients died at Cullinan, including Anchor and Siabadenga?
I was aware by the time when I was at Cullinan and Sebadinga, And that was before the closure of Siabadinga. There was only those 2 deaths. As I've said, we were extremely busy carting patients on a daily basis to hospitals, at all hospitals. And
Carting
then
patients on a daily basis to hospitals?
Yes, ma'am.
And why were you having to do that?
The patients were ill because we were concerned about the patients.
Why were the patients ill?
Ma'am, I cannot say why the patients were ill, because you could just see the patient wasn't right, the condition was changed. After the MEC visit, I've asked Mrs. More to assist us, to give us more, because the bulk of the patients were also at Cullinan. And then she arranged with Vescopis from Vescopis staff to come and help us. So Vescopis staff was also assigned to assist in this process.
Do you know how many patients died?
At those 2 centers, no, ma'am.
29.
I've heard afterwards.
You have heard that afterwards?
Afterwards, yes, ma'am.
So you know that 29?
Yes,
died.
after the deaths when it was discussed, but not during the time of deaths.
But you were responsible for those NGOs, and as they were dying, you didn't know they were dying?
Can I explain justice? There was a time when Siabadinga was closed down, and
You see, the normal thing is to answer a
I said-
question and then have a long
Oh, okay.
explanation thereafter if necessary.
no, ma'am, I wasn't aware of the patients that died at those 2 centers at that stage.
You were not aware?
Yes.
And do you know why you were not aware?
Excuse me, ma'am?
Why were you not aware?
Because I've moved myself away from that area in Cullinan.
No, you had not done that.
Excuse me?
That's not correct. I'm going to put it to you that that's not true. You were responsible for moving patients from Cullinan to Anchor and Siabadinga, isn't that so?
No, ma'am, I wasn't responsible to remove patients from Cullinan to Siabadinga.
And to Anchor?
No, ma'am, I wasn't removing any patients to any NGO.
So then Dr. Manamela's testimony was that you called her to inform her that patients would be transferred from Cullinan to Anchor House because of the shortage of space at Cullinan, and that she agreed with your plan. What do you say to that?
Yes, ma'am, I called Dr. Manamela. Can I explain justice?
Yes?
With the transfer of patients from Cullinan to Anchor, when the patients was transferred, it was a lot of patients that would overcrowd the ward. So I dealt with it with the managers and with the CEO, and they said there's nothing they can do. So I called Dr. Manamela to alert her on this. So it was more than what the capacity the ward could take. And then Dr. Manamela said we will
So you
sort
did
it
transfer
out.
patients from
I
Cullinan?
did not transfer. The patients were transferred by the CEO to Anchor. I did not do transfers at all, ma'am.
Who recommended the transfers?
According as I'm saying, Dr. Manamela was, according to all the discussion that we had afterwards, Dr. Manamela was responsible for informing people where the patients should be transferred to.
You called Dr. Manamela
When the patients was at the Anchor doorstep, because when I saw the amount of patients, I counted them. When I look at the bedding, I said, but this is not, it can't be accepted. So I went, the managers were still there that brought the patients over. So I asked them to take the other patients back, and they said they were instructed they're not going to do that. So I insist to have the CEO. The CEO was gone already. It was late at night. So I contacted the
From
CEO,
where
and she
were the
came
patients brought there?
from Cullinan Justice. So when the CEO came, she came in from home, and she says she was instructed by Dr. Manamela to make way for other patients to come to Cullinan. So she must just leave the patients there.
So it was Manamela's instruction, Dr. Manamela's instruction, you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So when she says that you called her to inform her that there would be patients transferred from Cullinan to Anchor because of a shortage of space at Cullinan, she was lying.
Ma'am, can I just explain again, Council? I
Let's
did not
answer the
phone.
question first,
No,
and
yeah,
you can
I didn't. I didn't call her and
You didn't
told her
call
about
her.
the transfer because
You
the-
did not.
No. I called her when the patient was already transferred and at
Who
Enka.
transferred them? Had they been discharged according to doctor's orders?
I don't know how the patients was discharged, but they were coming from Cullinan Center.
And you don't know how they were discharged from Cullinan Center? Because they would have been discharged, is that not so?
Yes, ma'am. Some of them did have some notes, discharge notes, but they didn't have files. And when I inquired the...
And do you remember when this happened?
Yeah, if I can remember, I'm not sure under correction, but I think it was on the 23rd of June or somewhere there.
That's right, 23rd
Yeah.
June 2016.
Yeah.
And at the time, Anchor was already struggling with funds, isn't that so?
All the NGOs were struggling, Council.
And they were also short of space, isn't that so?
Yes, Council.
And they didn't have sufficient food, isn't that so?
My knowledge, Anchor did have sufficient food. There were community, the Section 27 community was supporting Siabadinga. That is what I've observed and people that I've met there.
Who are
And,
Section 27?
it's the Section 20, or people from Section 27 as a point, it was Helping Hands. They said that was their name.
It's a different organization.
Yes, and they were supporting Siabadinga, and there was another organization that was supporting Anchor.
Do you know why they were supporting Anchor?
Because all
And
the
Siabadinga.
patients, yes, ma'am, because all
Because
the patients
they were short of
for
food.
Yeah, they were.
And they were dependent on donations and charity.
Yes, ma'am.
And at the same time, patients were being transferred to those NGOs,
Yes, ma'am.
putting them under further pressure, isn't that so?
Yes, Council.
And as we now know, 29 patients died.
Yes, Council.
And Anchor didn't have a license when it began.
No,
Isn't
not
that
at
so?
their premises, no, Council.
And why did they not have a license?
As I've said, it was a rush in. At that time, there's a stage where I said to Dr. Mamela, I'm not going to do license. I think I've just done a few because it was really chaotic and I myself now, I don't even understand. Then she says we would sort it out after the project.
Did you prepare the license for Anchor House?
At Cullinan Heights, but not for Cullinan.
But there was no such NGO at Kalafong Heights, isn't that so?
Yes,
So that
Council.
was another one of the fictional licenses.
Yes.
And did you know that Ms. Dorothy Franks was the manager of Anchor?
Yes, Council.
And did you know that Ms. Franks had no qualifications in mental health care?
According to my knowledge, Council, yes, qualifications, but experience for children she did have.
For children,
Yes, Council.
but not for mental health care, isn't that
No,
so?
not for mentally ill.
So she had no experience.
Yes, Council.
In fact, she has herself said so
Yes,
before
ma'am.
these proceedings,
Yes,
that she
Council.
did not have qualifications, nor did she have experience.
Yes, Council.
Yet she was granted a license, but with an incorrect address.
For children, yes.
And isn't it so that that license is for a child residential
Care
facility?
facility, yes.
But they didn't receive children at that facility, isn't that so?
No, Council.
And Ms. Franks has testified that you instructed her to take adults.
No, I didn't even transfer or place patients. When I realized what was that and then asked her, then she says that she has discussed or made Dr. Manamela aware, and she says that the patients is a temporary measure and the patients would be later on after the project being sent to appropriate NGOs.
So can you
That
just
was
repeat
both Precious Angels and Anchor that was assigned to receive children.
But they did not receive children.
No, they received adults.
Did you know Ms. Franks before this project started?
Yes, Justice.
How did you know her?
She was operating AFM Community Center, a children's center, for 7 years.
And how did she become an NGO owner?
Excuse
How
me.
was it selected? I've asked you this question before, I got no answer.
7
How
years.
did you choose the NGOs? How was she selected?
7 years ago, she applied to run that center.
You're talking about the AFM?
The AFM, yes.
That had nothing to do with this project, is
With
that?
Inc. No,
Okay.
nothing.
You assisted Ms. Franks to find space for Anchor, isn't that so?
Yes, on Dr. Manamela's instruction. Dr. Manamela has instructed me to ask the 4 managers that were supposed to go to Kalafong Heights if they would go to Sterkfontein and Cullinan, their space there.
So Ms. Franks has testified that you assisted in finding space for her NGO. Do you disagree with that?
Yes, with the instruction of Manamela, I've done that, yes.
And you know Ms. Franks, you knew her prior to issuing a license to her, isn't that so?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you related to Ms. Franks?
No, Council.
Do you have no relationship? No
Nothing.
familial relationship?
No, Council.
Are you friends with Ms. Franks?
No, Council.
Did you know her at all before this?
Yes, we stay in the same small community in Eerstra, so-called colored community. We're staying
But
there.
other than that, other than the fact that you live in the same area, you didn't
No,
know each other, we're not friends, and
no, Council.
Can I ask you to have a look? Justice, I'm not sure whether you've received it. It has been circulated to my colleagues. It's now Ella 125.
No, it doesn't reach me yet. I'm sure it will shortly. Is it the article, I think? Oh,
It's
I
the
see.
article
Yes.
Esidimeni Arbitration.
Yeah. Is it now Ella 125?
Ella 125.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Have you seen this article before, Ms. Jacobus?
No, I was told about it.
You were told about it?
Yes,
You
about the
haven't
article. I
actually
haven't
seen
had
it.
a chance to see it as yet.
It's an article written by a Ms. Suzanne Fenter.
Fenter, yes.
And it was published in the Rapport newspaper
Yes,
on 3 December 2017.
yes.
And at the start of the 4th paragraph of the article,
Yes,
the reporter says the following. Pardon my pronunciation. Rapport kan vandag onthul dat Jacobus baie hechte vriende is met Dorothy Franks, die stigter van die NRO, wat meer as 1 miljoen rand uit die tragedie geskep het. Do you take issue with that?
yes, Council.
Is that not true?
Yes, Council.
And later on in the article, there are quotes. If you look at the second-hand column, there are quotes from Frank Sabira saying that die twee is baie hechte vriende. And then it says other things about you. Are you saying that this is not true, that the neighbors in this community were
Yes.
lying?
Yes, Council, can I explain that? Because I spoke out of this reporter called me, and according to her version, she spoke to my
Whose version?
neighbors, the Suzanne Fenter, the reporter.
You spoke to the reporter?
She called me to ask me about these things being written down here. And I said to her, yes, I know Mrs. Franks. I've worked with her. I knew her now for these 7 years, professionally working with her. I know her as a community member of Eerstes, but we're not close friends.
And you're certainly not related to her?
I'm not related to her in no
Is it true
circumstances.
that she received more than $1 million from the department?
I have no
She
idea.
told us,
Justice.
remember, she has already testified. How much did she receive from the department?
Justice, I did not follow up all the NGO's payments, so I have no idea.
But why don't you know this? This one was the one that was under you, allegedly.
As I've said earlier on, Justice, if I can explain, there was, after the Siabadinga closure, I removed myself from the Siabadinga and Cullinan area because my life was in danger.
But
And I was then, Dr. Manamela assigned me to other NGOs. I was almost killed there one evening.
no, but
in that
just that
area.
one thing. There'll be many other questions. But you know that Ms. Franks received over $1 million for activities related to this project.
No, Justice, I'm not aware. I didn't go through any of the NGO's financial payments or anything. I haven't seen it.
Okay, let's hear the reason now.
Justice, remember with the time of
Why
the
don't
project?
you know this?
Because their time with I was away from Cullinan when their payments were starting. I was assigned at other NGOs.
Talk
not,
about the
not
money.
Cullinan.
Talk about the money. Why don't you know how much money she got out of the Life Esidimeni project?
Because I have no idea what money was assigned to the NGO.
Did you
No,
know that
Justice.
she had cards, SASA cards of her patients?
I've heard about that in the arbitration.
But why didn't you know then? When it was under you, why didn't you know that she had SASA cards of patients?
Justice, if I can, what happened with Enka and Siabadinga, they were closed down. And the minute the NGO are being closed, they're supposed to hand over everything back to the state. So in the process of closure, I was not involved. And the people that was dealing the closure was supposed to have informed or supporting them to take the necessary
You know
steps.
that
So
for
I don't
months
know.
and months she withdrew money with cards of deceased patients.
I have no idea, Justice.
Why don't you know?
Because I have no idea, I don't know, Justice.
No, the question is, why don't you know?
I was not aware.
You see, you know there's some citizens standing by and watching. You are the person in charge of NGOs and their operations and how they look after patients and about patients' welfare. That is what you are paid for. That's why I'm asking you this. Why don't you know? That's your work. You are paid to do that.
Yes, I agree, Justice.
Why don't you know?
I can't remember back clearly, but it was only a few months when these NGOs were in operation. Then most of these NGOs were closed down. And we were not allowed to have any contact with any NGO or continue with our normal daily work.
You might be like your counsel. You go ahead.
Thanks, Justice. Why were you not involved in the closure?
Because other people was assigned to do the closures.
Why were they assigned when you said there were only a few NGOs that you were responsible for?
Yes.
These two being amongst
So
your
what-
responsibility.
Yes.
So why were other people assigned?
Because the quality assurance teams, there was a special task team appointed by the...
But you had
after
no
the
role
Ombuds
whatsoever?
report. No, no.
They had
counsel.
no questions for you. There was no need for you to transfer information to them?
No, there was the person in the office. There was a person in the office, or they would request information from us from the office, and we will then look at paperwork and all that and transfer it over to them.
So you know nothing about it after that?
But financial was from the financial
And you knew
side
very little in the process as well, it would seem.
of closure, yes.
Well, you didn't know about the deaths.
Yes, ma'am. Not in the areas that I've operated
Did
in.
you know that they were not receiving their subsidy?
Yes, ma'am.
And that
Most
it
of
was
these
your
NGOs.
responsibility to ensure that they received their subsidy, isn't
Yes,
that so?
ma'am.
So why did you not ensure that they received their subsidy?
Council, as I've said earlier on, with the hasteness of the project, when I instruct the district people to assist with documentation, Dr. Manamela stopped that process. And without documentation, finance could not execute.
So was
the
Dr.
payments.
Manamela the reason for the delay in the subsidies?
Because we couldn't have any documentation.
Was she the was Dr.
According to my
Manamela the
observation,
reason
yes.
for the delay?
According
in
to my
the subsidies?
observation, yes.
And at Siabadinga, you were aware of the pressure they were under, isn't that so?
Yes, ma'am.
As with Anchor.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had delivered the license to Siabadinga to start off with.
No, ma'am.
Who provided the license to Siabadinga?
I don't know, ma'am.
The license that was made out for Life Disciples.
Yes, Council.
You say you had nothing to do with that.
No, Council.
So if
Not
it
at
wasn't
all.
you, who could it have been?
I have no idea, Council.
And that was around 30 June 2016.
That was when I've called Dr. Manamela to bring out more help so that we could assess.
But the
troubled
license was
NGOs.
provided to Siabadinga around 30 June 2016.
I have no idea who provided the
But
license.
you were
to
there at the
them.
time.
I was there, yes, ma'am, but I didn't, prior to that, there was no license.
I'm not
on
asking
it.
you about whether you now issued the license or caused it to be issued. I'm saying a license was only provided to Siabadinga on 30 June 2016.
I don't know, ma'am. I don't know, Council.
They started to receive patients before they received a license, isn't that so?
Yes, Council.
That's correct. And when they received the license, it was made out to a different organization, isn't that so?
Council, they did not receive a license, Siabadinga.
They never received a license at all.
Yes.
In
Yes,
fact, you are
Counsel.
more accurate. It's true. They
Yes,
never
Counsel.
operated with a license at all,
Yes.
isn't that so? And you, it was Ms. Diane Noyila, my learned colleagues already put this to you, has told us that you informed her that she should put the license up on the door because senior management was arriving.
No, ma'am.
You
No,
say she was
Counsel.
lying when
Yes,
she said
Council.
so.
Yes.
And did you tell Ms. Noyile that there was a lot of time pressure and that the irregular license and the subsidies and so on would be sorted out
No, Council.
later on?
No, Council.
And it's correct that there was no audit of Siabadinga before patients were moved there, isn't that
Yes.
so?
Yes, Council.
And there were no doctors or professional nurses at Siabadinga, isn't that so?
Yes, Council.
In fact, there wasn't a single staff member at Siabadinga qualified to care for
Yes.
mental health care users, isn't that
Yes,
so?
Council.
It's also correct that medicine was being dispensed by auxiliary nurses who were not permitted to dispense
Yes, that
medicines,
was
isn't
my
that so?
observation, yes.
And while you knew all of this, you still transferred further patients from Life Esidimeni to Siabadinga.
I'm not aware of patients being transferred to Siabadinga, ma'am, from Life. I'm not aware of that.
From Cullinan to Siabadinga in order to
Yes.
make space for Life Esidimeni patients, yes?
Previously, I only heard about a few patients afterwards that was instructed by Dr. Manamela to be sent to Siabadinga. One of the sisters
Instructed by
that
Dr.
was there.
Manamela.
Yeah, that is what I've heard.
And you were not involved at all.
No, ma'am.
And this is one of the NGOs that you were responsible for.
Yes, ma'am.
And you say you were present on site.
Yes, ma'am. But remember, the patients came, I think the patients came late, and I wasn't every day always there because I was also supporting the other NGOs, and NGOs
So now
have
you were not there
challenges when
either.
I go back.
Okay. So you were not aware of all of this, and
Yes.
it all happened and passed you by.
Not passed me by, I wasn't aware, Council.
Well, it took place. We know it took
Yes,
place. Do you
yes.
disagree with the objective fact that that
It
is what
took
happened?
place. Yes, I
It took
heard
place.
that. Yes.
You were not aware of it.
Yes, Council.
And in the delays in payments, do you know how long there were delays?
If I can recall back, the NGOs were paying differently because of the paperwork that had to be put in place for payment.
So repeat that.
The NGOs were paying in different
The question is, how long was
months.
the delay?
It was quite a few months, Council.
And did that give you concern?
Yes, Council, the whole time.
But there was not much you could do about it.
Excuse me?
There wasn't much you could do about it. Is that what your
Yes,
testimony
Counsel.
is? One of the themes that arises from the report of the Ombud is that there was a culture of fear in the department. And that you were one of those people who felt most fearful and, in his words, paralyzed, unable to perform their responsibilities correctly. What is your response to that?
To perform my responsibility correctly is what I'm supposed to do. As I've said earlier, right in the beginning when I started talking counsel, that there was a lot of differences between me and Dr. Manamela, and hence the work was then distributed to everybody. And I was assigned certain tasks like
You
my
haven't dealt
task.
with the question. The question is fear of your senior. Just deal with the question.
Were you fearful of Dr. Manamela?
In a way, because she wouldn't listen to a person. And at the stage you were just numb and you just carried out instructions.
Were you fearful of anybody else?
Not really fearful, but apprehensive of them.
Apprehensive?
Yes.
What caused your apprehension?
Because we were raising our concerns, we were talking, we've done numerous things, numerous processes was in place, and the project was still continuing. And so what we've done our best to secure and assist the NGOs that cares for the patients. So that is why we continued on.
You see, the NGOs didn't receive support, those who needed it. And they should not have been licensed in the first place.
Yes, I agree, Council.
And what were you afraid of?
That patients,
No, I'm talking about this culture of fear in the department now. What were you afraid of?
Council, at this stage,
What would happen if you said, I'm out, I'm not doing this?
I've done that in Cullinan. That is why I was removed from there, and I said, I can't continue like this. I was removed from there and placed elsewhere.
Which is not a bad thing if you didn't want to. Isn't that so? What were
Yes.
you afraid of?
Excuse me?
What were you afraid of then when you say you
Council,
felt fearful?
If I can explain just at that stage, one was really tired of this process was chaotic and very, very emotionally taxing. And one was tired of fighting and kicking and screaming with the result. I don't know, it was just, I can't describe it.
The question was, what
I
were
can't
you
describe
afraid
it, Justice. I can't describe it.
Will you just deal with that question? What were you afraid of?
Justice, as I'm trying to answer, at that stage, one was really tired, really emotionally tired of kicking and screaming, and because you report there was various processes in place that the department didn't adhere to. So I can't explain further. It was just, it's a mixture of emotions.
But it prevented you from reporting it further.
It was
your fear.
reported. Yes, it was reported.
To Dr. Manamela, but you didn't take it any further. You've already said that. You didn't take
Council,
it any
we've
further.
discussed it with the project manager. Who also raised his concerns and submitted
Yes, but it
the
didn't
report.
go anywhere. So you didn't then go to the next level up.
Dr. Mazamisa was the next level.
And nothing happened? Nothing
Yes.
happened?
Where she said she will take it up
But
and
nothing
discuss
happened,
it
isn't that
further.
so?
Yes, ma'am.
And you didn't take it any further after that?
Ma'am, at that stage, I could not think because of all the work it incurred, where still to go, because she was concentrating on the work that needs to be executed.
But the work that was executed resulted in death. Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Franks, I'm sorry, Ms. Jacobus, are you still employed at the department?
Yes, Council.
Are you still in the same position as you
Yes,
held
Council.
previously? Were you weren't, were you placed under any disciplinary inquiry?
Yes, Council.
And what was the outcome of that inquiry?
It's still continuing.
It's still continuing.
Yes, Council. It's not yet concluded.
And you have the same responsibilities as you had before.
Yes, Council.
And why should we believe that you would carry out the responsibilities any differently now?
I cannot answer that, Council. You can answer that. I cannot.
Do you think you've faced adequate consequences for your actions?
Yes, Council. I've tried everything to assist patients where I could. It was hectic. It was on a 24-hour basis.
My question was about the consequences to you. Do you think that you are appropriately suited to this job?
Yes, Council.
And how do we know that this wouldn't happen again?
Because
What would be different going forward?
different going forward, I won't, as I've learned, because this was a learning curve for me and for all the officials working, and to know now that you should take things further than just the department in terms of getting help elsewhere or reporting things, and to execute according to legislation.
And are you playing any role in trying to get to the bottom of what happened in this project? Are you assisting with that within the department?
In what way, Council? How do you mean?
Providing information like you've been providing today. Have you already provided that information to anybody else? To the current MEC, for example?
We have an acting director now who's executing that, so we assist providing information.
So somebody else is doing that.
Yes.
Is it
We
somebody
know
new?
it's- Yes.
So can they really have the insight that you have, having been there before?
According to my observation and our working relationship, according to what she said to me, it was just said that we didn't really speak up further than just the department and engaging other avenues of reporting our concerns. But you could see that we are well qualified to execute what we're doing, and that everything should be the way it is, because prior to Life, things were executed in a legislative procedure on a yearly basis and throughout the year. When Life came, we were asked to stop that and do it in that way.
But the test of a functional department is how it deals with the problem, how it deals with the crisis, isn't that so?
Yes, Council.
It's easy to perform well when everything is going smoothly and there aren't any, isn't that so?
Not really, Council, because remember, with the, if I can justice.
I mean, relatively easier.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I'm not suggesting
Because
that
it's
this is an easy
according
job for
plan.
anybody
Yes,
at
yes.
all. I'm not at all suggesting that.
Okay, yes, Council.
All I'm saying is that the real test of one's mettle is when you are put under pressure, isn't that so?
Yes, Council.
Who do you think is responsible for the 143 deaths?
Justice, that's a difficult question. I don't know.
Who acted in a way that was wrong and should be held accountable for the Marathon project?
I don't know, Justice. I cannot answer that and say who should be held responsible.
Just throw your voice up.
I say I don't know. I cannot say who should be held responsible for the Marathon project.
Who, in your view now, after this devastation, after the death of so many people, and the harm of so many survivors, when you think back, you've been there for 30 years, when you think back, who did what wrong?
We all did things wrong by not following procedure, Justice.
No, we don't talk about we and thing. I'd like to know, you have a lot of experience. You've assured us you care for mental health care users. And you are a committed civil servant, you tell us. Who should be held accountable for the wrong that came out of marathon project?
Council, I mean, Justice, again, I cannot pinpoint, but what we've been told was instruction from above. And we never received a written document from that instruction. The only time that we became aware was when this project was, the Ombudsman project was on it. We saw that was a letter signed by Dr. Selabano.
Who would you, if you judging the whole situation and you worked there, you say, firstly start with you. Do you think you must be held to account for any of your conduct?
I was working under instruction, Justice.
No, but answer the
And
question.
delegation.
So you say you're not accountable for anything?
Yes, I'm accountable because I've executed some duties within
What are
the
you
project.
accountable for?
By executing the work, going to NGOs, looking for beds, placing beds, doing the marathon, all that.
So you're prepared to be held accountable for? In clear words, let me hear you.
Yes, Justice, because I'm already being disciplined. I'm under disciplinary hearing because of that, of my action.
And besides you, who else ought to be held accountable for the failure of the life of the marathon project?
Justice, that I cannot really answer because remember with the execution, and this was a very painful learning curve. We didn't anticipate that things would go that way.
You said nothing about all the forged licenses.
That is why I've said, Council, I've acted wrong, and that is why I say I am guilty of that because I've executed that instruction. I didn't stop that instruction.
Sorry, my last, I'm almost done, Justice, but Ms. Jacobus, you say that you're currently facing disciplinary hearing.
Yes, Council.
Is it not so that the disciplinary hearing is complete and you received a final written warning?
Yes, Council.
So there's no disciplinary
Yes, that is
inquiry
being, yeah, I
that you
forgot,
are
sorry.
facing now? There isn't that so?
Yeah, but it's not yet complete. It's not yet complete.
Well, there was a hearing
Yeah, some time ago.
and you pleaded guilty.
Sorry?
Did you plead guilty?
Yes, because of the execution
And did
of
you
my
then receive a
functions.
final written warning?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was the end of the matter, wasn't it?
No, not yet. It's not yet finalized.
Was there an appeal?
Sorry? No, no appeal.
What do you mean by it's not finalized?
We're still under the disciplinary, I don't know how to term it. It's not yet the whole year. The final written warning process is not yet finalized.
What do you mean it's not finalized? You haven't received it?
I received it, but remember there's a time period that that is subjected to, and that process is not yet finalized. We're still working under that.
You're still under what?
The final written warning is subjected to a certain period,
period.
time scale, and that is not yet finalized.
It hasn't, you mean the time period hasn't?
Yes,
What was the
yes.
period of the written warning?
It was 6 months.
And where are we now?
I think 5 months.
5 months.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Justice.
Thank you. But isn't this disaster so big that you should be falling on your sword?
Excuse me, Justice.
Isn't the disaster, the death of all the people here and the trauma and the pain of all the survivors, and both of these of such a magnitude, of such a size, that you actually should be resigning from your job? To show your remorse and to accept accountability. So much wrong has happened under your watch as head of NGOs in Gauteng, in mental health care in particular. That's why you have been called here. Isn't that of such magnitude that a rational human being should be saying, I'm obliged to resign, to show remorse and to show accountability?
Justice, with all due respect, I am, and I'm very saddened on what happened. And
Just
I've
say it
tried.
louder.
I say I'm very saddened with what happened. I'm still going through that. And what I've done during the process of the project, trying everything, working 24 hours day in and day out at different NGOs to do what I can do to assist patients. And not me alone, I was roping in district staff to support, and they really support. And we were doing that.
Are you done, Council? Not,
I have no
not
further
yet.
questions.
You
Thank you. I'm done.
You
Thanks.
are done. Thank you. It is 4:40 p.m. and I'm not unmindful of our program for tomorrow. So I need advice, I need guidance.
Justice, I'm ready to proceed now, but I think if lots of the ground I wanted to cover has already been covered, if I could have overnight to just compact that, I think it would be a shorter period and not extending the witnesses' stay in the witness box.
Yeah, it's not unreasonable. I don't think it is. I'm inclined so too that you be given the opportunity to gather your thoughts and to
Thank you, Justice.
and we will to continue tomorrow. I'm more concerned about the expert witnesses. That's really what I'm talking about. What arrangements should we make? Perhaps for them to start be here only at 11. I mean, after tea at 12.
Justice, if we could start after tea, that would be sufficient time for our witness.
With the
There's
expert.
only one witness other than Mr. Quobus.
So there'll be one expert witness tomorrow, not
Yes,
two.
just one.
So Mr. Grobler will,
It will be
Dr.
Professor
Grobler
Dai.
will come later.
Yes,
Or so it will only be one.
that's right.
Okay, so to avoid inconvenience, it should be, Professor
After
Dai
tea.
should be informed that she need only be here at 12, I think.
That would be
Would that be in order?
in order.
Is that arrangement in order?
Yes, the arrangement is in order.
Advocate Groenewald?
The arrangement is in order. Thank you.
Advocate Utamo, is that good?
We do concur with the arrangement.
Okay. Can I just raise two matters before we adjourn, which may require Council's assistance? The first is to you, Advocate Hassan. It would be helpful if you had to inquire from your clients whether any of them had been approached by Dr. Silibano following his much vaunted public apology, seeking to have a door-to-door, house-to-house apology that he publicly promised. So if you might not be able to, you might want to canvass with your clients and report on this tomorrow, unless you have the answer. Or you do have the answer.
I do have the answer.
Shall we put it on record?
to
Yeah.
that? The attorneys for the families received a letter from the attorneys for Dr. Salabano, Ramsey Weber attorneys. The letter was actually sent to one of the family representatives, Ms. Christine Homalo, and she forwarded it to the attorneys, Section 27. The letter is dated 17 January 2018, so yesterday. And it's a letter written on behalf of Dr. Salabano asking for Section 27 to facilitate a meeting with the families. So the former HOD has taken steps to begin a series of meetings with the families, if that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second matter, again a follow-up matter, Advocate Hutamo. When attorneys and or counsel for the state inquire from the general who appeared before us and gave evidence about criminal investigations, to prepare a brief report in writing, as the Ombudsman did, telling us how far the criminal investigations have gone. there's been about 3 months or 4 months that he had been here. Is that something that the state will be able to assist in?
Justice, we should be able to make that follow-up inquiry with the general, and we should also be able to obtain a written report to that effect.
Yes, that will be quite helpful. Remember, it's also tied up with the other proceedings that started in one of the courts. So it'll be helpful just to get a report on that so that we can clear the matter up.
We will endeavor to make that follow-up.
And give us a sense of what they are doing with criminal prosecutions.
Indeed so.
Thank you. Those are my 2 matters. Any counsel? Is there any matter that any of the counsel would like to raise before we adjourn? We are adjourned to tomorrow at 9:30. And I'm sorry, Mrs. Franks. I'm sorry. Mrs. Jacobus, you are instructed to be here tomorrow at 9:30.